Hi, this is Jeannie McCrae, and we're here to bring you another episode of Morrison Memories. This is our third episode, and today I'm excited about it because it's going to be about the Kerrs. And if y'all know me, you know I like history, and I like all this interesting stuff that happened a long time ago, and that happened in the last few years too. But anyway, today our guests are my sister Donna Homer and Mike Kerr. Mike is Shorty, Arthur Kerr's son, youngest child. He had an older sisters, Mona and Pat, and then my sister is the oldest of Coke Kerrs. Well, everybody thinks I'm the oldest, but she's actually the oldest. And then we had a brother, David Kerr, who passed away, and myself. And Coke was our father, Coke and Merle Kerr. And Mike's parents were Arthur and Audine Kinnemer Kerr.
Our dads were brothers.
Yes, dads were brothers, yeah. And then they had one sister, Verlinda, who married Earl Harding, and they lived out here southeast of town. And they had Harvey and Leo and Levon and Monica. Verlie passed away in like 1967. I remember her because she was such a sweet, sweet, sweet lady. So that's kind of the background of who's here. We would just like to, first of all, maybe talk about how the Kerrs actually got here. And of course, the land run of the Cherokee Strip land run in 1893 was actually, I believe, land run. But anyway, our great-great-grandfather, Elias Kerr, you take it from there.
Elias had two sons named Sabe and Dave, right?
Yeah.
And they made the land run. Elias came later.
One of my accounts said they made the run.
But he didn't make the actual run.
But he stayed at once they staked it, he stayed there and kind of guarded it while they went and
at Kearney
made the claim.
At Kearney.
At Kearney?
Because that's where Elias moved back to, was Kearney.
Yeah, they originally
I think they had a claim there, didn't they?
I don't know. Another claim?
I think so.
Oh, I don't know about that. All I know is about this one.
Anyway, Dave and them came on and they got up to the creek and it was all plowed and they didn't get it, but they got your home place.
And Elias went back to Kearney. Some of the
went back to Kearney, and I don't know whether that was part of the claim or whether he owned that by purchase.
Yeah, it wasn't part of the Cherokee Strip, I don't think. I don't think it went down that far south. But now I could be wrong. But something I read, and I've got a bunch of old letters and cards that I can barely read that were in a box, I guess, in the attic of the home place. And it was talking about they would write back and forth, and they'd say, well, there's not much going on. I haven't heard much about the land run, not much going on here. But then someone was in Kansas. Anyway, they were writing back and forth trying to figure out if, and then I guess, they figured out when it was going to happen, and they made the run. But anyway.
Yeah.
And so there's a funny story about Sabe. Do you want to tell that story, or Donna, you want to tell that story?
Mike.
About the lightning?
Yeah, the lightning.
There came a storm up like yesterday. It got dark, and he went out of the house to go put the chickens up, and he got hit by lightning, and they carried him back to the porch. He was still alive, and he said to take off his boots. My feet hurt. And they took off his boots, and there was a blister around every tack that was in that shoe around his foot on both feet. And it wasn't shortly after that
he died.
Passed away. Yeah.
That was saved. Yeah.
That was saved.
They said the reason why maybe Daddy told me this, maybe it's not true, but you got to put the chickens in because they'll drown. They'll put their heads up and now is that true? Or did I just, I've never heard that. You ever heard that?
You'll have to ask Donna on that.
I don't know about that.
Anyway, it was just something I throw in. But
you might tell they dug a dugout in the side of the hill.
Yeah, to live in, they dug a dugout, and it's still there today. We still use it. I mean, David and Joanna Kerr own own the land now. They inherited that, but we rent it and whatever. And we have actually used that cellar for a cellar because we don't have a cellar at our house.
I didn't even know it still
had
a door.
And it's cleaned out. Well, we put another door on it, but it's amazing how they did that and lived in it. I just can't. And it was hooked on when they built onto the house. They built the house onto the dugout. We lived there, and we would use it as a cellar and Mother would put her canning and stuff. And there's always surprises when you went back there to get something.
Yeah, there were scorpions and snakes and spiders.
And we lived out. I can't believe we didn't. I don't know how I ever slept. Being joined onto the house like that.
You're too young, didn't worry about it.
I guess not. But anyway, of course, the house is gone, but the dugout's still there, which is pretty neat. Stood the test of time, I guess. They knew what they were doing.
Well, by the way, this homestead was 3 miles south of Morrison,
Right.
and yours was 4.
Grandpa bought that quarter. When your David, was a little guy, and I was a little bit older, I had to stay at Harding's. When my mother was sick, I'd stay out there in the summer. And I got in on the last 2 years of threshing. And they were threshing west of the house on the West 80s. And I drove the Jeep, and it had a 55-gallon drum of water in it. And there was always I think 16 or 18 guys on this harvest crew.
Wow.
And I'd drive this Jeep around, and I think it was wrapped in gunny sacks or something wet, and kept that water cool, and give all these hands water that fill their jugs or whatever. But they'd also hand out tobacco. And of course,
did you partake?
I partook of a little bit of it. And then we got back somewhere, and I started getting really, really sick, and I started throwing up. And David ran to Uncle Coke or somewhere, his dad. Said, Mike's dying. And said, if we can help him or something. I don't know.
I remember one time we rode our bikes and we decided we didn't want to ride home. We stopped at Newman's or did I bring that? And called, and Daddy came picked us up.
I don't remember
No.
that.
Okay, well, it may not be
I
right.
just remember riding by Hawks, and they had dogs that would chase you.
Yeah.
That was a lot of romance happened down there at Yost Lake, didn't it?
There was always about 500 kids down there.
A lot.
Later on was too. And your dad would always let me off. I worked for him my sophomore, junior,
Several summers.
then I worked for Harvey his senior year, I think. Got building the elevator. But anyway, it was a good time. And he always knew that was teen night, so about 5:30 or so, I'd get off and go home,
Call it.
take a bath, and go to the old place.
Yeah. Shorty, Arthur Kerr, your dad. Of course, everybody knows Arthur as Shorty.
Mm-hmm.
And he was married to Audine, and she got sick and had cancer, right? And died in...
In 1950, she got breast cancer. But she made it to 1958. She was 47. But the last year, she was at the Medical Research Foundation, Oklahoma City. Daddy had a 1952 four-door Chevrolet car on propane.
Of course.
And I can't remember how many nights a week I'd always take my books and stuff, put them in the back seat, and do my homework down there at Medical Research. And we would go to Perry down 86th, over to Mulhall, down through Guthrie. That's where we went to Oklahoma City. And anyway, I don't know how many months or how long it was. She was down there like 6 months maybe or something like that. It was quite a while. And until she died there. She finally died. But they went through every kind of operation. I know they took part of her pituitary out and that kind of stuff. And there was a little girl down the hall from her, and somehow I got acquainted with her. She was about my age at that time. I think about 11 or 12. And anyway, her parents would let me push her up and down the hall. Her name was Candy. She had black hair and all this stuff. And of course, after about 2 or 3 months, I'd go down there and she's not there anymore. Of course, they didn't tell me what happened. Anyway.
Yeah, Audine was a real sweet lady. Not everybody loved Audine, I know that. So.
Yeah, she was. I know all the nurses down at Stillwater were at the funeral. I can remember them walking in their uniform. That's about all I can remember.
So then, Shorty, tell about him, Arthur, about his going across country before he got married, before he
I'll tell you,
settled down.
There's certain things that he never would tell me much about, and that was his wrestling career. He would not tell me a thing about it. He was a state runner-up in high school. Most of this is just what I got from Uncle Coke or somebody else or Harvey. And a lot of his medals that he had got burned up in the house. I don't know how much of that house burnt. All I know is all the surrounding people came and helped him build it back. A lot of those medals were melted together and stuff. And then he spent, I think, August or something down there he got a scholarship to OSU to wrestle for Ed Gallagher. And he was, I think the latter part of August or something, they were working out, and I remember they were working out in September, and he said they would go down into those steam tunnels to lose weight, to make
really?
weight that furnished the steam to all the dormitories and stuff. And they would go down in those steam tunnels and run in those steam tunnels and stuff to lose weight. And anyway, did all that. They came, I don't know what month it was. It was probably a late harvest or late haying season. And when he came back in probably October maybe, he was helping, they had a stationary baler, and they broke for noon, and he reached down into where the bull gears are, and he caught his glove and pulled these 3 fingers. But Daddy told me, the only thing he told me, this is the only finger that was missing. But old Doc Wittenberg said he ain't gonna need these 2 because they're not gonna be worth anything, so we'll just cut them off.
Oh, wow.
I remember him saying that because it made him mad later on in life that they could have saved these 2 and he probably could have wrestled.
So he didn't get to wrestle for OSU because
he didn't get to wrestle
it was
for
the Aggies.
Ed Gallagher, but I think they kept him on scholarship for that year, or Ed Gallagher did.
What about as a coach? Was there any like those, right about to beat the clock moments that yes?
Yeah, the best, yeah.
Any of those?
Oh, the 84 team was a really good team with Doretta, Janie, Kim McSwain, and Billy Will, and all. It's hard to say names without naming them all.
Right.
But there was, I think, maybe 12 seniors on that team, something like that. They were senior loaded, but they had been real successful during their career. And on that game, I can't remember whether there was 1 or 2 seconds left in the first game of the state tournament. And we got a foul off the guardian. Somebody fouled. Billy Will got a foul and they fouled her. And Kim McSwain, I think, went to the line and made a 1-and-1. And they only had like 2 seconds to get it down. That put us into the semifinals. And that was a real nice win. The 87 team was a team that did more than they should have. They made it to state. Andrew Moore, Jenny Taylor, those girls, unless I got a book here, I can't remember everybody. But anyway, we had to play Fairfax. We got revenge. We played them at Sequoia Claremore. They had made it through the loser break. We beat them in the district, and they were waiting on us. And we had to play them in the area finals that night in the losers final. Anyway, we beat them to go to state. We had to play Cheyenne the first game. We was ahead of them 14-13. They were 2-time defending state champions. They were going for their 3rd one. They had a girl named Jody Fisher that was really good that played at OSU. They ended up beating us 14 or 15 points. And for the rest of the tournament, they beat everybody else by 20 or more. So I told them we were state runner-ups, even though we didn't get out the first round. We played them closer than anybody down there that year.
Yeah.
That was fun. It was a fun bunch.
Okay, this concludes our episode, and we just thank you for watching and listening to us, and we hope you enjoy it. And if you do, well, just let us know and let Joel know what a great job he's doing. And I want to thank Donna and Mike for being our guests today, and I think we'll have another show for you in a few days, so I hope you keep watching, and we just, concludes our episode, and I just want to say happy trails.